Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I hope you brought something to write with and your questions. Today, we are going to talk about getting to the next level, which is really overcoming adversity. And we have someone who is just has done phenomenal work in that arena, both with helping people and organizations get to the next level in their lives, in their performance of their organizations, performance individually, overcoming incredible adversities. And I was looking at his bio and just thinking, it's someone that is hard to introduce because he's just done so much. This is someone that has been through personal tragedies multiple tragedies, any one of which could have just completely crushed a more normal individual. And it is something that he used those experiences to be successful in business, to help others, to be part of suicide prevention in a very meaningful way. He has recently been in Uvalde, Texas. We have the founder of everythingnextlevel.com. And his brand is Next Level. He runs Next Level by Association dinners, which is something that you need. It's about proximity. We've talked about that on Wolf's Watch. Is huge. This is someone that you need to be around, and the people that he attracts to him. Please welcome Bob Donnell. Bob, thanks for being with us.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
I could just go on and on. Oh my gosh, here we go. We got from Texas, Sherelle Lint. Thanks for listening in. Glad you're part of the conversation. Ernest Odell.
Good morning, Ernest.
Thanks for joining us. Flo, Mina.
Hello.
Been to the dinners. The dinners are amazing, aren't they? It's just incredible. The people that show up, the conversations that are had, it's just, oh man. Ernest, we've got a great group listening in. Bob, I want to dive right in. We were talking about this pre-show. As you are watching this is live and interactive, 21st century television. So get your questions ready, get ready to write stuff down and listen up, because we're going to start with the really big stuff. There's been a lot of crazy stuff going on socially in the U.S. You were recently in Uvalde, Texas, after the horrific tragedy, the shooting that happened there, helping that community. How do people even approach dealing with and overcoming such an unthinkable circumstance?
That's the first thing that I get asked, or the most predominant thing I get asked when I'm at any of those events, whether it be Las Vegas or whether it be the El Monte Police Department or whether it be, Uvalde, Saugus High School, El Paso. The number one question I get asked is, Bob, how do you make sense of this? And the first thing I always say is, stop trying to make sense of senseless behavior. It's a pillar that I created many years ago. Stop trying to make sense of senseless behavior. Wow. And when I say that to law enforcement or I say that to first responders, they'll just like, yes, please. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying to make sense of a crazy behavior. And so when I approach an event like that, a situation like that, first thing I have to realize is that everyone's trying to make sense of this. How do I figure this out? Make sense. And the first thing I have to do is just calm them down to the point where they go, they're not looking to make sense of it. They're looking to work through it. They're looking to make progress. They're looking to, how can I prevent this from the next time? That's a better question. How can I prevent this is a much more empowering question than how do I make sense of this? Because if you make sense of that, I had some law enforcement, we were talking in Uvalde, and we all came to the consensus that if you make sense of this, you might have a problem yourself.
Wow. Yeah. That I get that. That resonates. It's like if crazy makes sense, guess what? I'm part of the crazy.
Amen.
If I'm seeing the logic in it, man.
Yeah.
How are we able to help? I mean, it seems that would be a big part of being helpful in a situation like that, is first, help getting through that realization of going, there is no sense. Don't drive yourself nuts going down that path.
Yeah. When I first get into town or at one of those situations, the first thing for me to do is just kind of hunker down and kind of get to know the layout and the land of the land. And, maybe visit the memorial or visit what's going on, and then kind of get to know some of the general consensus of how the community is reacting and responding. The biggest part for me is just being there and allowing myself to just be a vessel. allowing myself to just be someone that can, some people call it holding space. Some people just call it being there to be present to them. I rarely approach somebody and start talking to them. It will normally be especially at a memorial site, it'll be somebody where I'm just standing there. They're just standing there. And one thing will lead to another where they begin to talk. They'll ask a question. They'll start showing an emotion. And if they start showing an emotion, one of the first things I've learned in crisis intervention is to not try and just comfort them, but to try and understand what they're being emotional about. A lot of these kind of events have triggers for people. So they may not know somebody directly there. They may not have witnessed anything specific, but it triggers them. And then you'll have people that know somebody that knows somebody. And then you'll have others that they know somebody. And then they'll have people that are like, that was my son, that was my daughter. And you have to understand where they're coming from in order to be able to help them. So I think that's one of the first things, is just being present enough to shut up and listen.
Well, I was something that I heard somebody share I've been involved in 12-step recovery communities for a long time. And someone, a friend of mine was sharing from the heart one day and said something that struck me as really profound, that parallels we were just talking about. She said, one of the things that I appreciate, and she was rebuilding her life after going through a terrible divorce and a lot of other things that had happened around that. And she said, one of the things I appreciate is that I can come here and you let me sit and just be and just be around people. And you let me, that allows me to heal from the inside out.
Yes.
And it still gives me chills, because when she said that, it's like the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. I was like, well, I never thought about that. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is be empathetic and be present.
Yeah. Just allowing that's such a great statement. And I think if we could understand the power of that, I get asked all the, Bob, why are you going? I mean, what are you going to do? It's already over. I mean, those are the three things. Why are you going? What are you going to do? And then the event's already taking place. What are you really there for? And the biggest thing is I just show up to say, I'm here. I'm present enough to hear what's going on, and ask great questions. And I think when we ask the power of connection, which I teach in connectology, the power of your connection will always be determined by the questions you ask. And so, like I'll give you an example. In Las Vegas, there was a young girl that was just staring at one of the crosses that had a picture on it of obviously somebody that she knew, and she was crying. And I looked at her, and we were both standing right next to each other, but we hadn't said anything for probably 5 or 10 minutes. And I just looked at her, and she became emotional. And once she became emotional, that was the time for me to be able to, ask. And I said, how well did you know her? And she goes, oh my gosh. She was my best friend. And in high school, her boyfriend and her knew that I didn't have a date for prom. So they took me to the prom. And she goes,
wow.
And it was just, it's just so powerful. And I said, so can you share with me some of the most, the best experiences you had with her? And she goes, yeah, that prom. And she started scrolling through her phone and showing me picture after picture after picture.
Oh my gosh.
Here's where we were at the prom, and that's her boyfriend. And they and she became emotional, but in a different sense. And it was this idea that she could connect the dots of this experience that she had with this person that's no longer here. And so I wanted to start helping her think about the memories, the great memories that they could share together, even in this young woman's passing. And I think sometimes it was just my ability to be there. Again, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm gifted. I've had some education, some training in it, but I'm present enough to just be. And I think when we can just be there for people, whether it's somebody going through a divorce or somebody having a business dealing that went south, or just somebody who's just got a quarrel with somebody in their family, being is going to be the number one way to be of support and of value to them.
Yes, that is so huge. The connection Ernest Odell. Bob must be an empath. He's amazing. So true. And thank you for sharing, Ernest. You shared this out. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, you.
Flo, the way to connect with people is the way you connect with people. I'm sorry. I get so excited. I get tongue tied. It is awesome to watch. Your questions also help your questions are also top notch, a true talent.
Thank you.
That is true.
Yeah. She's been with me at several different places. So
Ernest, it's great you connect with someone else. Yes. Even if you didn't know them. Well, and it's back to that. The power of connection isn't always through talk. Right. It's the you also talk about proximity, and I hear other leaders talk about proximity, just the being in the room. And I experienced this 2 weekends ago. I was at an event where I was looking around the room. I was like going, I know my life story. How the heck did I get in this room to be with these people?
Yeah.
And it was an amazing moment to be able to sit there, look around the room, see people that I had great respect for, that had achieved a lot, and feel okay as part of the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Proximity is key. I mean, put yourself in rooms where the right people are there. But also you can be in the right place with the wrong intention.
Yeah.
What I see a lot of people do is they surround themselves they try and go to all these events so that they can be around these great people, but their intention's wrong. And so then they wonder why everything fell flat. I've been very blessed to have great relationships over the course of years.
Yeah.
The best thing that I've done is to been present enough to go, let me just soak this up. Let me just be present, but have an intention before you get there. In connectology, I talk about this whole idea of have a criteria about what you're looking for, and then have questions that will help you flush out whether that person meets that criteria or not. Otherwise, you don't spend a lot of time with people that really don't meet the criteria that you need to in order to get where you want to get and where you can be of value to them. We've got to be of value to them first. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter who it is. I've been around some of the greatest people in the speaking industry and in business and entrepreneurship, and every one of them has something they're looking for, and it's up to us to find it. It's not up to them to tell us.
Yes, I like that. It's up to us to find it, not them to tell us.
Yeah.
And with having the intent, is that so when you go to to be of service at places like Uvalde where there's been a tragedy, you have very clear intention. Is that should people be doing that when we go to events? I go to an industry event or go to a mastermind to have that type of that level of clarity on what my intention is when I head into that room?
Yeah, even before you leave your house, you should have an intention and fine tune it on the way to the event. And before you walk in the room, before you open that door, have that intention very crystal clear, and then have questions that will align it. So let me, if I want to know if somebody's open-minded, I can come up with a lot of different questions that will help flush out whether that person's open-minded. And I'll give you an example. One of those would be, when was the last time you did something for the very first time? Now, they can answer that a lot of different ways. They're going to answer it with, well, I don't know. Let me, I'm kind of a creature of habit. I like to do, things the same way. Well, that's probably not a person that's going to be high on open-mindedness. Or they'll be say, oh, well, last week I went to a soccer game. Wow, a soccer game. Now write this down. A good question begets a better question.
Good question begets a better question.
Yeah. So if I ask, what was the last time you did something for the very first time, and somebody says, I went to a soccer game. Now that opens the door for me to have a more personal conversation. So what was it about the soccer game, or why did it take you so long to go to a soccer game? And then what did you like best about it? See, it opens up the caveat for the conversation to a lot of different aspects. But most people are doing this. Most people are walking up to somebody of the opposite sex and saying, hi, do you want to have sex? And they're getting slapped because they're not following sequence. Sequence does matter. if I asked you
Sequence does matter.
what's your phone, if I asked you to call me and I gave you 7 random numbers, you'd never be able to make that call. But if I asked you to call me and I said, hey, here's my phone number, 949-542-6398, you could call me the very first time, because sequence does matter. So when we're asking questions out of sequence, when we do that, we open ourselves up to more no's than are really required. So having that sequence, asking the right questions. And Bob, people say, Bob, how do I come up with the right questions? You have to have a criteria first. I have 6 criteria that are for everyone in my life, personally, professionally, strategically. All are the same questions for me. Those are criteria, and out of those criteria, I form the questions. People are like, just give me a couple of questions. I don't know what your criteria is. Criteria is different than avatars. It's not age range, medium income, all that. Criteria is behaviors and characteristics. So open-mindedness would be a characteristic, right?
And that goes a lot deeper than.
Yes, absolutely. An action taker will be a behavior, right? So you look at characteristics and behaviors, that helps you determine the criteria you have. And then from the criteria, then you can develop the questions you want.
Just wanted to acknowledge Lynn. She's joined the conversation. How you doing, Lynn?
Love Lynn.
But yeah, and that's something as simple.
People will go to an event without a criteria. They'll go to the event without a criteria. And then they go and they stand there and they look around and they go, well, who should I talk to? I'll give you a great tip. This is something I've used for 25, 30 years. A great tip. If you go to an event, have a criteria to know why you're at the event. If that doesn't meet your criteria, don't go to the event. And again, you have to have the criteria first, then you can develop the question. But when I get to an event, I will, if I don't already know the leader, the person putting it on, I will try and at least find other people that know the leader, but I will walk in and find the leader, find the person putting it on, because guess what? They know most of the people in the room, or they know the idea of the people in the room. I can go up to that person and say, hey, if you were running, I could say, hey, I'm at this event. I'm really glad to be here. One of the criteria that I have for people in my life and clients, as well as strategic partners, is open-minded. Who do you think, could you point me in the direction of maybe 3 people in the room that are the most open-minded people you know?
Wow.
And they'll know them. Now, then I'll say,
what a different event that would make.
Totally different event,
different
right?
Experience.
They already meet the criteria. The ones I'm meeting are already meeting the criteria. Yeah. Then the coolest thing is that person, I could say, could you introduce me to that person? And they'll be like, yeah. I find that introductions are obviously the best thing you can do, right? Because that third party validation. I was at an event. I'd always wanted to meet Ken Blanchard, amazing leader and speaker and trainer and author. Always wanted to meet him. He was there in the front row. He's sitting there. I walked over to Greg Reed, who's a good friend of mine, and I said, hey, Greg, I know you know Ken. I've never met him. I would love to just meet him. Would you mind introducing me? Greg says, come on, Bob. Walks me over and says, hey, Ken, this is my good friend, Bob. And I just thought you guys should connect. Okay. Now, it became because I asked. It was because I was looking for something. Now, again, now what you do with that is totally different. There's 3 levels of real true, the ability to connect. One is contact. You just contact somebody, right? Might be a phone call, might be an email, might be in an event. You just contact. That is the time for the trailer of the movie, not the movie. You don't vomit on them. You don't tell them the movie. You do the trailer to see if there's enough legs for somebody to want to see the movie, right? My good friend Wesley Gu talks about that. The second part is to connect. So there's contact, then there's connect. And when you connect with somebody, it might be over something that you have a similar interest in. Your sons both play baseball. You came from the South, they came from the South. It might be something that feeds that connection. Mm-hmm. And then the last part of that is cultivate. And that's going to come over time and experience to cultivate that relationship. I've been very blessed to have people in my life that not only have I contacted, not only have I connected with them, and connection is kind of like this. It's kind of like setting a TV. A contact is like setting a TV next to a wall. It's not going to do much good because it's not plugged in. The connection is when it gets plugged in. But the cultivation is when you start turning it on, spending time in front of it, watching the channels, as being very specific about the shows you want to watch, you can cultivate. A connection is only enhanced when you learn to cultivate it. And that might be time, might be experience, it might be different things that happen in your life, different things that happen in their life. And one of the simplest way people say, Bob, how do you do that? One of the simplest ways is I make a note of things that are of interest to the people I'm interested in. So if I know somebody is a Dodger fan, right, is a big Dodger fan, I might put in my Google alerts Dodgers. And so that anything happens with Dodgers, I'll be alerted to it. And then I can go and take a clipping or take a video or take a YouTube or whatever and send it and say, hey, Jeffrey, there's this, I know you're a big Dodger fan. I wanted you to see, had you seen this? Now, me asking you, have you seen this, means you're going to respond. I'm talking about something that's your language, something that you like. And now I'm asking you, did you see it? And very few people will just ignore that. They'll be like, yeah, I saw that. Or, oh, thanks for sharing. I'll take a look at it later. But we have to build the sequence in. Contact, connect, cultivate.
I love that. Contact, connect, cultivate. As you're watching, hope you're making notes. I am. You can see me looking off to the side. It's not just reading notes. I'm making notes because talk about gold nuggets. Yes. Love Bob Donnell. Don't we all?
Thank you.
That. Dang. That is and great examples too. It makes it so tangible, something that you can use. Such great nuggets. Thanks for sharing your genius, Bob. Yes, Flo, I agree.
Thanks,
It's being able to break it down so we can actually take action and do something with it. And being able to, you reminded me of something that on the connection, I went to a Pepperdine alumni event, and I knew the dean of the business school at that time, Dr. Baskin, and
perfect.
Walk in. I got there early, and all the students are around the sides of the room, like they tend to be at events like that. And I see Dr. Baskin talking to somebody. I walk up and say hello, and he introduces me to the guest speaker.
Perfect.
So, and I had a question in mind that I wanted to ask him, and he was the Bob Boyd. His last name's Boyd, and he was the CEO of the Tom Peters company at the time.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And because I got there early and I asked a question, and we start talking, and this maybe about 5 minutes or so, the room fills up, and all of a sudden Dr. Baskin touches my elbow, and he's like, here, stand over here. So now I'm standing next so there's me, the dean of the business school, and the guest of honor. And he's and all these people that are now there that want to say hello and be introduced. So now he's introducing me to everybody in the room. And it just ended up being an amazing experience because I showed up early and wanted to thank the speaker.
Yeah.
And the, and the host that had made the event work.
Love
and
that.
Had a question prepared.
Yeah.
Just that simple step has gotten me to the contact point more times than I could begin to tell.
Sure. The quality question is by far the number one thing that I would tell anybody. Develop great questions, but you can only develop great questions once you have the criteria.
Yes. And I got 5 minutes with the CEO of ITT doing that.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of it.
He was a keynote speaker at an industry event and I said, okay, I want to meet him. I got a question I want to ask him. It was relevant to a project we were working on at the time. And they kind of helped him because he had this crush of people that were coming up, and we had a common contact. And I said, I know so-and-so. And he's like, really? I go, yeah, I have a question for him. He's like, great. And he goes, come on, let's go over here. And it got him away from this group of people that wanted to talk to him. He goes, I don't have a lot of time, but he goes, so he just asked about the person that we knew in common. And I explained, I go, look, here's the question I got. So here I am off to the side for like 5 minutes.
It's awesome.
And it's fun watching everyone else that showed up unprepared.
Amen. It is.
Because they're looking at like, how did you do that? But you take it next level, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not just the contact. It's like, what do you do then? How do you make that connection? How do you cultivate that over time? Facebook user, who are you? We can't see your name.
I'm guessing that's Lynn.
Oh, yes, probably is. Good point. Tom Jen, thank you.
Hey,
This is
Tom.
great company.
Absolutely. Looking forward to our conversation as well, Tom.
But so coming back to adversity in business right now, because this is a very interesting time with business. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of, so we say, less than optimal information and stuff happening out in the marketplace and the general economy, but yet there's a lot of really good opportunity. How do people that are experiencing something that, adversity that's not at that level, just at that mind-numbing level of tragedies,
Yeah.
like we've seen recently, but are more that kind of baked in day to day? It seems like it becomes numbing in a different sense, where it's just like, okay, we're kind of trudging through the day. What do we
In business?
do?
You're talking in business, right?
Specifically in business, because it's like one thing after another. It's like, oh, interest rates are going on. The supply chains causing problems. Like, for example, I was talking to someone in the pool and spa industry and in construction in general. It's like they're booming, but they can't get stuff. They can't get material that they need to deliver jobs, which is causing them problems. They're getting, they bid a job now because there was delays. They're 6 months, 9 months later, plus prices have gone up to get what they originally ordered that wasn't available. So they've got those types of pressures and adversity. Does the same approach apply to that, or do you do something a little bit
the
different?
same approach applies, at least on the onset, that we have to ask better questions. And I'm going to beat that drum until it resonates. We've got to ask better questions. Asking, well, why is this happening, doesn't really serve anything. It's like, what can I do with this information? Who can I talk to that has maybe had a similar experience? I hear people all the time in my coaching business. People will say, Bob, you just don't understand. It's like I'm starting all over. I'm starting from nothing. I'm like, do you have any education that you gleaned from the last 20 years in business? Well, yeah. Do you have a supply chain that you now can rely on differently than you did before? Yes. Do you have other mentors that you could ask questions of? Yes. All of a sudden, you're not starting at zero. You're starting at 40%. So stop. You've got to deal with the truth, the absolute truth, and stop calling it what it's not. It's not starting at zero. It's not starting all over. You have practical experience. So first thing is get real with what you're expecting. Second is ask better questions. And then the third part is to really, really realize that this whole idea of what's going on in our lives, and sometimes, there's a great Bible verse, and it talks about the rain falls on the just and the unjust. It doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, how good looking you are, what house you live in, what car the rain falls on the just and the unjust. So just realize that you're not that special, that you get all the problems. There's other people that have problems too. And I think one of the biggest things when my daughter died, and I'm going to use this because this is something I created because of that. When my daughter died, she was 3 years old, died in a car accident that I witnessed. One of the things I did was I said, okay, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this, because otherwise it could tank me. What I started realizing, it was tanking my business. It was tanking everything else at the same time. What I did was I said, okay, I need to figure out a way to revamp this. But more importantly, I need to figure out a step-by-step process that I can take. So the first thing I did was I said, when I feel unhappy, when I feel sad, when I feel like I'm missing my daughter, when I'm feeling unhappy, I'm going to allow myself to feel that. Most people will just gloss it over, push it down, shove it down so that they don't feel it. I'm like, no, I'm going to feel it. I'm just going to allow myself to feel it. Now, the second part of that was I put a time limit on it. So maybe you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed with your business. Maybe some things have gone south. Maybe you're filing bankruptcy. Who knows? But you've got some things. Allow yourself to feel that. The second part is put a time limit. So I would say, okay, I'm going to allow myself to feel this for a half hour, for an hour. I'm going to allow myself to just be totally immersed and feel that for that period of time. But at the end of that time, the half hour, 15 minutes, whatever it was, I had to do something. And that was, I would get up and I would go do something for someone else. Because when we take our eyes off of us and our problems and who we are and what's going on, we become better by helping others. And so the first thing, the second thing, the third thing I would do, first, second, and third thing I would do is go, who can I do something for right now? So I'd be feeling miserable about the loss of my daughter or about my business or whatever. I would set aside some time to feel it. And then the third thing I would do is I'd say, what can I do for someone else? So I might go to the neighbor and see his trash can sitting out at the curb, and I might take him in and put him in. I might go to the store, sit there and watch people coming in and out, and have an elderly person walk out with their groceries, and I might just help them load their groceries. Whatever it is to take my eyes off of myself and put it on someone else. So that's a 3-step process that I can tell you whether you do that for a death of a loved one, you do that for a financial crisis, you do that for a business struggling, no matter what you do. If you can do those 3 things, I will guarantee on the other side of helping that other person, you will be better and you will be in a better place to help even more people.
Wow. Tom, I go to gratitude. Yes, that's huge. But I just love what you're saying, because it's like whatever the problem is, the answer always comes back to, how can I be of service to somebody?
Amen. Truth.
Wow. This is just one gold nugget after another.
Thank you.
But it's the perspective. And I've heard this from you. I've heard this from other high performers. It seems that it comes back to managing the perspective and maintaining perspective that's rooted in, like you're saying, get real with what's going on.
Yeah.
Feel it rather than feel the emotion rather than stuff it.
True.
There's a good talk. It's like, man, got a lot of that growing up. It's like, man up, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll get over it. And with extensive testing on that when I was younger, doesn't work so well. So to be able, again, to have some practical steps that are deceptively simple.
Very.
And I say that because in my mind, I think simple must be easy. Nah, not always the case.
Right. True.
So does applying it become easier with time?
Yeah, it's like building the muscle. When we start going to the gym and we go, I'm going to lift 500 pounds. Laugh, right? But we start with 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150 pounds, 200 pounds, or whatever it is. We start putting things. We start taking action and developing that muscle. The muscle is, in this case, might be just starting with step 1. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. And then I'm going to set a time limit. And then I'm going to do something for someone else. That might just be step 1. That just might be it. That's the only thing you do. You can't do anything else, but you're going to do that. And then you do it. And then over the course of time, it becomes unconscious competence. And you begin to do it without even having to think about it or articulate it. And I think once we do that, we start building up that muscle, we can really look at some of the other muscles that we can start to develop. Empathy would be a great one. The ability to ask those questions is really about how do we develop the criteria, and then the criteria might come from our own ability or inability to have a certain result that we want in our life. But those would be again, starting with just the muscle, building the muscle. Go back to Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind, right? Know what you're looking for, then let's reverse engineer it and come back to that which we want.
And again, it seems that a part of that, an important part of that, is who we put ourselves around, who I allow to come around me, what efforts I make to put myself into situations with other people.
So true. Power of association.
And you touched on, you mentioned it earlier, the dinners that you do, the Next Level by Association and other events that you run. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, for 12 years, I've hosted a private dinner in Orange County, California on the 3rd Thursday of every month, in which I bring in people and we have amazing conversation. We have amazing people share their stories. We've had Les Brown, we've had Keith Ferrazzi, we've had
Wow.
Jarek Robbins. We've had for 12 years, once a month, a different person. We've had amazing, amazing people. Lee Steinberg, the famed sports agent. All these people, friends of mine that have come because I've asked them to come and because they're wanting to give back. They're not paid to be there. They're not getting any compensation. They're showing up on their own dime, and it's become this amazing contribution of one life to another. And so I've been very blessed to, again, contact, connect, cultivate these relationships so that when we ask, they say yes. Now, obviously, there's sometimes that it doesn't work in their schedule, and so we have to do it, or they're not in the local area. But like Glenn Morshower is a good friend of mine. Glenn has been a guest of honor several times because we developed a relationship about 12 years ago. And we've cultivated, we spent time, we've wept in each other's arms. We've shared multiple meals. I've stayed at his house. He stayed at my house. We've shared intimate details of our life. That's cultivation. When I bring somebody on to my next level by association, just like Scott Schilling we had on this morning. Scott Schilling is a great speaker trainer, executive coach, amazing guy who once sold over almost $700,000 in his 60-minute presentation on a stage. And we cultivated because I saw him online. We talked about it online, many years ago. And then one day I'm like, I hear you're going to be in Palm Springs tomorrow. He says, I am. I said, I'll be there. I drove 2 hours, got up early in the morning, drove 2 hours to sit down, have coffee with him when he came off stage. We spent that afternoon together. The next day we spent time together. And now over the years, I've been to Dallas and speaking, and he'll make the drive in from Dallas to come and hear me speak. It's that kind of relationship currency that you're looking for. And you ask questions that you don't have the relationship currency for, the answer will almost always be no. We have to develop the relationship currency first.
Yeah. And what a powerful example to have people that play at that level willing to volunteer to come to speak at your dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. And next level by association is one of my favorite things of all time that I've ever done in my life. And through COVID, we couldn't meet, so we met online. And now we're starting to meet back, but it's a smaller, more intimate thing because some people have moved out of the area and those things. But one of the coolest things is we still have people that have been there from day one, 12 years ago. And we have
that speaks volumes.
Multiple people there. Yeah. So that have been there from day one. So it's really kind of cool from that standpoint. But again, it's that idea of the power of association. How do you get to the next level? By associating with the right people and emulating what they're doing.
Powerful words. Powerful. Now, how can we get involved with the next level by association and other things that you're doing?
Yeah, the membership is you can come once as a guest, virtually or otherwise. If you want to come to dinner, you can come once as a guest. If you're coming to the dinner, there's a cost of $50 to cover the cost of the meal. And so that's built into it right there. But if you're coming virtually, you can come once as a guest and you can go online. So go to nextlevelbyassociation.com, nextlevelbyassociation.com, or shoot me a text at 949-542-6398, 949-542-6398, and we'll get you all the information. But I mean, guys, I can't tell you how much putting yourself in the right room, putting yourself with the right people can do for you. And and then learning how to cultivate those relationships. We've got relationships in there where we're asking questions like every month. We're having deep discussions about things that some people you will never go to dinners typically and have this conversation. It's an orchestrated conversation. It's not a free fall. So I hate going to an event where there's crosstalk. Everyone's like, hey, so what do you? And I hate the number one question that's always asked, what do you do? When people ask me that, I say one of the things I do is teach people to not ask what do you do as an opening line of question.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things, right? So
it's like you were saying earlier, it's like going to write, hey, want to have sex?
Right. This is bore me about this whole what do you do? And so, having the right conversations with the right people in the right setting and at the right time are the things that really cultivate those relationships.
Powerful stuff. And as you're watching this, that was how I met Bob. I put myself in a situation where someone that had created that event knew Bob really well. Bob showed up, was speaking and stayed for part of the event. And I got to get to know him and have had a lot of gratitude for that. It's just the people that you meet will come from where you put yourself, who you have proximity to, and the quality of the questions that you ask. And
one of the things I want to draw attention to is that we've stayed in touch. You've stayed in touch with me. I've stayed in touch with you. We know each other. We've spent time around each other. We're present in each other's social environment, social influence.
Yes.
If we had just met and then neither one of us had ever talked to each other again, or neither one of us found out about each other anything interesting, it would have ended. And so it takes effort, guys. It does take relationship currency requires an investment, sometimes of time, sometimes of money, sometimes of relationship endeavors, things like that. But we have to do that. And that's one thing I appreciate about you, Jeff, is that we've had those times where we've been able to have different conversations at different times over the years.
Yes. That goes both ways. I do too. I deeply appreciate those conversations and look forward to more.
Yeah, likewise.
And as you're watching this, if you're in Southern California, you need to be at these dinners. Go check one out. It's just the cost of dinner to be there for one live. It makes such a huge difference. If you're not in Southern California or you can't make the dinner time and you aren't, virtual is an option now.
Yeah. Virtual is an option. We've done pop-ups. We did one in Scottsdale with Sharon.
Oh, nice.
Right before COVID.
Nice. So go to Next Level by Association and get involved. Put yourself around people that will make a huge difference and they'll help you make a difference.
Amen.
So Bob, thanks so much for being part of the conversation today.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
And as you're watching this, thank you for being here. Smash that like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel so you can get more of this. We got more interviews coming up. Bob is setting the bar for us. So now we need to make sure that we at least hit this standard and keep moving to the next level as well. So thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.
Thanks, guys.